You ever see someone's world collapse in 5 seconds flat? I did, standing right behind my living room window, mug in hand, while the Channel 7 news van bounced up my driveway, and Evelyn Wright's smile shriveled up faster than a slug on a salt lick. Honest to God, she'd been so sure she was about to roast me live on TV for flagrant violations of the HOA rules, never knowing I'd spent 3 weeks quietly stockpiling dirt on her. And not just her backyard mess. Her fingerprints were all over some financial stuff in the HOA books that'd make an auditor whistle. You want to talk about poetic justice? Just wait. The name's Gregory Mitchell. I'm a compliance auditor by trade. You know, the guy who reads the fine print, municipal codes, government budgets, the boring stuff nobody else wants to touch. That's me. And yeah, I'm the weirdo who gets a thrill out of balancing spreadsheets to the penny. I moved into Willowbrook Estates about a year and a half back, thinking it'd be a quiet place to build my little vegetable garden, maybe set up a workshop, live the simple life. Boy, was I wrong. See, what I didn't count on was Evelyn Wright, the self-crowned queen of our HOA. Imagine someone with perfectly shellacked silver hair, always in a blazer no matter if it's July, and a tight little grin that never quite hits her eyes. Her power? A binder stuffed with HOA rules, and an itchy trigger finger for dishing out fines. 3 months after I moved in, right when my tomatoes and peppers started coming up, I landed in her crosshairs. I'd done my homework, believe me. Measured every garden bed, triple-checked setback lines, picked plants that wouldn't ruffle a single feather. But Evelyn didn't care about the written rules. She had her own special interpretation. She called my garden an agricultural eyesore. And I'll tell you right now, before this story gets any wilder, drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, and buckle up. This little veggie patch ended up taking down the most corrupt HOA president you've ever heard of. First violation notice hit my mailbox Monday morning. Official letterhead, signed in Evelyn's signature purple ink, citing section 12.4 about unsightly displays. I walked my whole yard, tape measure in hand, snapped photos from every angle. My garden was screened off by fences and landscaping, not a tomato in sight from the neighbor's side. Called Evelyn, explained it. She flat out told me she could interpret the rules however she wanted, and I was in violation, then hung up when I asked for specifics. 3 days later, new notice, noise ordinances, she said, for my supposedly rowdy irrigation system. Joke's on her. It's a silent drip line. The week after that, improper storage of gardening tools. She fined me $50 a pop and made it crystal clear she'd keep stacking those tickets until I caved and ripped up the garden. By then, I knew this wasn't about the rules. Evelyn just didn't like me, and she was out to break me. Well, turns out, picking a fight with a professional investigator isn't always wise. I pulled the original HOA charter from county records, and, wouldn't you know it, several rules she used to fine me had been changed by the board with no homeowner vote. Total bylaw violation. Then I started walking past Evelyn's place on evening strolls. Her colonial on the corner, fancy landscaping, and some additions that looked a bit fishy. For someone so big on rules, Evelyn sure skirted a bunch of her own. There was a shed behind her garage that looked suspiciously unpermitted. Her driveway was widened way past what the survey allowed. And a koi pond had sprouted up overnight, with a waterfall no less. Definitely not at her yard when I toured the neighborhood before buying. 2 weeks of digging through city code, HOA guidelines, and property records, and I was up to my ears in her violations. Everything from illegal setbacks to environmental issues with that pond. And then, the real kicker, I started reviewing the HOA's finances. Homeowners have the right to request budgets and spending reports. Evelyn stonewalled me, said they were sensitive, so I hit her with a written demand quoting state law, and she finally caved, sending me a version with so many blacked out numbers it looked like a spy file. Still, even with the redactions, I saw weird stuff. $15,000 paid for tree trimming nobody could remember, $8,000 to a landscaping company for flower beds that were mostly dirt and weeds. I started snapping pictures of every public space, every patch of grass, every flower bed, matching it up with what the books claimed. The pattern was screamingly obvious. Money was being bled out, and for what? Then I noticed several of our vendors had the same address as a property management company owned by Evelyn's husband. Was it illegal? Not quite, but it sure smelled rotten. At this point, my evidence pile was getting thick. I could file with the Attorney General, but those cases take forever. Meanwhile, Evelyn kept slapping me with violations. I had 12 notices totaling $600 in fines. But she got greedy, and that was her undoing. She mailed the whole neighborhood a letter, said my defiance was tanking property values. Included drone photos of my garden. I still don't know who flew it, and painted me as some agricultural menace hoarding hazardous chemicals and running power tools at dawn. She even threatened legal action. I spent a weekend prepping my own letter for every homeowner, photos, documents, everything proving I was by the book, and Evelyn was well not. But then I thought, why just defend? Why not go full offensive? I called Janet Taylor, 2 streets over. A longtime Evelyn critic had tried to run for HOA president but got bullied out. Showed her my files. Her jaw dropped. Janet connected me with Scott Rivera, a retired attorney with his own fat dossier on Evelyn. Scott saw the bigger picture right away. He pointed out even more violations, decisions Evelyn made without board approval, stuff that could get her removed and maybe prosecuted. So, the 3 of us cooked up a formal complaint to the Attorney General, the county inspector, and city planners. But Scott had a better idea. Media. Jonathan Chavez, Channel 7's consumer reporter, was a pro at taking down shady HOAs. Scott set up a meeting. I was nervous. I never wanted to be that guy on the evening news. But Janet and Scott were right. Evelyn wasn't just after me. She'd been bullying folk for years. We'd wait for the right moment to go public. That moment came sooner than I expected. Evelyn called Channel 7 herself. Neighbor Maria Walker sprinted over to tell me. Evelyn was out front with a news crew, ready to put me on blast. I freaked out for about 2 minutes, then realized, you know what? She just handed me the perfect shot. I called Scott and Jonathan. Turned out Jonathan already knew the score. He'd seen our evidence and was all too happy to hear Evelyn out first. He told me to let her walk right into it. So I organized every shred of proof I had. Scott drafted a legal brief. Janet got other homeowners to give statements. The news crew planned to get Evelyn's side, then swing the camera on her property and our files. Monday, 3:15 sharp, the news van pulls up. Evelyn's out there in her best navy blazer, thick folder in hand, face smug as a cat at a goldfish bowl. She laid it on thick for the cameras, called me a troublemaker, accused me of everything short of arson, waived her violation letters, told Jonathan I was wrecking property values. She showed her drone shots, called my garden an unsightly agricultural operation. I kept quiet, watching from the window. Jonathan just kept her talking, asked her to explain the rule changes, the ones she'd made up herself, asked why the fines, asked if she ever tried to work things out. Evelyn said I was unreasonable, only responded to firm enforcement. She painted herself as the last defense against neighborhood chaos. Then Jonathan flipped the script. He started asking about HOA transparency, how changes are supposed to require homeowner votes. Evelyn beamed, said she followed all the rules. Jonathan pulled out the original bylaws, then the current ones, with her unauthorized changes highlighted. For the first time, Evelyn's smile started to crack. She stammered, called the records incomplete, couldn't name a single meeting where the changes were approved. Then came questions about the finances. Jonathan showed her the $15,000 for tree work, asked where and when it happened. Evelyn claimed confidentiality, mumbled about protecting vendor privacy. But Jonathan wasn't done. He asked if it was true several vendors were owned by her husband. Evelyn tried to shrug it off, said it was approved. Jonathan asked for paperwork. She promised to find it. Then came the knockout. Jonathan asked why Evelyn find other people for garden sheds or driveway expansions, but her own property was breaking all those same rules. Evelyn snapped, claimed her place was in full compliance. So the camera crew rolled right over and filmed her illegal shed, expanded driveway, and koi pond, explaining every violation on air. Evelyn trailed after them, getting more frantic by the minute, unable to produce a single permit. Jonathan interviewed me next. I showed him my garden, screened, tidy, 100% compliant. Showed the paper trail of how Evelyn bent the rules and funneled money through her husband's companies. I stuck to the facts, let the evidence do the talking. 3 days later, the story airs, HOA president's double standard. It starts with Evelyn's rant, then tears down every one of her claims, shows my spotless garden, then her mess of a backyard and the fishy finances. The neighborhood exploded, calls, texts, folks showing up with old violation letters, telling stories about Evelyn's harassment. Janet called an emergency meeting. The room was packed, neighbors with thick files of grievances, nobody scared anymore. Homeowners took the mic one by one, telling how Evelyn twisted rules, threatened fines, made decisions in the dark. Scott laid out her legal violations. When Evelyn tried to argue, she got heckled right out of the room. We voted, unanimous no confidence. When she refused to resign, we started the recall. Within weeks, county inspectors made her rip out the shed, fix the driveway, drain the koi pond. The state launched an audit, found over $50,000 had been funneled through her husband's company, with 0 competitive bids. The recall passed with 87%. Janet became the new president, tossed all of Evelyn's fake rules, wrote new ones requiring homeowner votes and clear appeals. We got nearly $30,000 back from overcharged contracts. Evelyn and her husband had to pay up and were banned from HOA involvement. Ever. For me, all those fines got canceled, and I got every penny back. Best of all, I finally had peace. Nobody peeking over my fence, nobody threatening me for growing tomatoes. But the ripple was bigger. Neighboring HOAs started cleaning house, thanks to the news story. Jonathan did follow-ups, helped pass new state laws, and more folks fought back against corrupt boards. And here's the kicker. Evelyn thought calling the news would ruin me. Instead, she put herself in the crosshairs and got what she'd dished out for years. If she'd just left me alone, her little kingdom might have lasted. But bullies bank on folks being too scared or too tired to push back, until someone with the right skills and a little patience flips the script. What did I learn? Keep records, build alliances, learn the rules, and don't be afraid to go public. Thanks to Janet and Scott, we built a model HOA. Now, gardens are everywhere, neighbors swap veggies, and people actually talk at meetings instead of whispering. I even help folks in other neighborhoods document their own HOA nightmares. Look, local power matters more than people think. When good folks stay silent, small tyrants like Evelyn can make life miserable for everyone. But when people get smart, get organized, and get loud, the bullies crumble and whole communities change for the better. So, let me ask you, have you ever tangled with an HOA Karen or seen a local official go way too far? Drop your story in the comments. Let's hear about it. And hey, don't forget to subscribe if you want more tales of justice served up hot and fresh. Sometimes, the best victories start with a single tomato plant and a little patience.